الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. One of the verses of last week's class I mentioned وَالْقَلَمِ وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took an oath by the qalam, the pen. And one of the things I started talking about is how academic Islam is as well. Like, it's not just a matter of belief, and there's special clerics that go and study about Islam and so on, but yet Allah has encouraged knowledge, and everyone should seek knowledge. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned that seeking knowledge is fard, is necessary upon every believer, right? It is necessary upon every believer, and that is the knowledge that requires a person to be able to worship Allah. Because if you can't worship Allah, you don't know how to worship Allah, whose fault is that? Allah has told you to seek knowledge so that you can worship Him in the correct way. And that's very important for us to always understand and always remind ourselves and our families that part of your deen requires you to take out some time to learn. Right? We all have to learn. Right? Without learning, there's no progress, and the learning gets you the ma'rifah, the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's something that is very important, inshallah ta'ala. It was a different one. Okay. So that being said, one of the ways of learning is writing, and writing helps us to remember. Sisters know this properly. Sisters do this all the time. Whenever I sit down in a class with sisters, they pull out a pen and a paper. Brothers, I don't know why they don't like doing that. So walk with a handbag. Don't make that excuse. You come into that class, pull out a piece of paper and a book. Brother Alim used to come with a recorder. I don't know what he used to do with that recording, but the point is, you have to at least, like, sometimes, because in every class, inshallah ta'ala, there's something that might be of interest to you, something new to you, or something that you may understand better, right? And even if you didn't understand anything, what reminders that you have today that can, inshallah, benefit you? So that's why it's always important to write those things down. Even if you have a template of that, even you do something on the computer, you make a template. Okay, what did I learn? What was beneficial? What was new to me today? What takeaway did I have? It's always beneficial to do, inshallah. So this is a practice. Whenever I would sit in a dars, I would definitely take out a pen and a paper and write down. And even if not so, I would take out my phone and take some notes on it. Right? So this is the way to do it, inshallah. Even when I sit down sometime in ta'aleem in the masjid there, right? Not much is sima with the brothers and them, but inshallah, if Allah give me tawfiq, once I sit with them, something I will remember, or something I would take note of in my mind, or something would spark interest to me. So knowledge is part of our DNA. It's a part of our existence. It's part of who we are as believers, and something that we should all be mindful of, and all be, inshallah, willing to grasp more of, and to become more knowledgeable, inshallah. Can anyone tell me some of the merits? Whilst we're here right now, we're on the chat as well. Can anyone tell me some of the merits of seeking knowledge, or how did Allah and His Rasul or anyone give status to someone of knowledge? So, I mean, part of that too, very good. Part of responsibility, because you remember the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Islam and Medina was a state. It was not just a place or a religious organization. It was the state organization of the believers as well. So it was a governance. It was government as well. There was governors. There would be different people sent to oversee different areas and so on as the governors and so on. So part of that, you have to have knowledge. If you don't have knowledge of Quran and Sunnah, how can you rule, or how can you show proper consideration for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You would not, right? That's why it is incumbent that every single person of authority, that he ensures that he learns the knowledge that is required for him and the position that he has as well. So if he's a tradesman, business, he have to learn business, the laws of business. Otherwise, Allah will ask him why you did this, wrongly. If he's a person, just a statesman, what are the laws of governance and taking care of people under him? And general laws too are necessary for us as believers, but we're lacking that. We're lacking it a lot. Because even in things like communication, for example, we communicate with each other every day. But the etiquettes and the sunnah and the requirements of communication, little do we actually know about it. Because there is clear cut that define laws and principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed. If a person is an imam of a masjid, he needs to know certain masail, certain laws, certain rulings, certain sunnahs, and he has to learn those things. Otherwise, he will be culpable. He will be responsible for not fulfilling those responsibilities. When you're a father, when you're a mother, you're responsible. That's why responsibility is something that we have to hold very, very dear. And inshallah, the more we become responsible, the better of a service we'll provide, the better of a person you'll become, the greater you would see the need for upping your service or what you do as a person. You always seem to want to be better. That's the attitude of a believer, inshallah ta'ala. So I still asking, and I didn't see anyone in the chat. Did anyone see or know of what are some of the merits of the merits of studying Deen, of learning about Islam, learning about, what honor did Allah give to anyone of knowledge? What is knowledge? Why is knowledge so important to us? Nothing come to mind? Right? So Sahib al-Quran, the Hafiz of Quran, right? The person Hamil al-Quran, those people who are connected to the Quran. That's why it's always important that Allah places merit lists, right? There's many merit lists. There's not just one, there's many. Because each category of persons to have the ability to gain a merit. For example, a wife could gain a merit too in doing her duties as a wife. As a mother, she could be a merit, meaning there's two female things right away there. As an imam, as a person, a normal person who is connected to the masjid, a person who seeks knowledge. Everybody has the ability to gain many merit lists. This is why you remember Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and the doors of Jannah, all doors of Jannah will be calling unto him, come through me. Because Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, in his capacity, superseded every single individual after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He superseded every single individual in his truthfulness to doing what he should do as a believer. Don't we all try and strive to do that? Like, okay, I want to be a good father. I want to be a good, neighbor. I want to be a good person. I want to, try to do well as a businessman. I want to do well as a charitable person. I want to do well as a musalli to pray my salah. I want to do well in my fasting. I want to do well in everything. Abu Bakr did so well in everything that all the gates of Jannah, all 8 gates of Jannah will be calling unto him and saying, come pass through me. You superseded in this merit, this merit, this merit, this merit, this merit. Sure. Maybe 7. I can't call out all the names right now, so we gotta check that back. You might be right. I might be right. 7 heavens, 8 gates. Let's check that, right? Inshallah. The hands up. There we go. Who has a hand up? Let me get the answer first, inshallah.
It's important for gaining rewards.
Right. So seeking
Seeking
knowledge
knowledge.
does. Go on.
Yeah, it's important to seek knowledge in order to gain rewards and in order to practice our deen as we're supposed to practice. And there's also a saying of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whoever follows their path in pursuit of knowledge, Allah will make easy for that path in paradise. So I think that's the important one of your importance of seeking reward, seeking knowledge.
Right. So very good. So these are some of the things like if you go into and when you look at the chapters of all these topics, right? You look at the chapters of hadith with regard to knowledge, seeking knowledge. There are clear encouragements for virtues of that person who does an act like seeking of knowledge. One of them is that that person who seeks knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the path to Jannah easy, right? Such that, there's other hadith that further explains this point. If a person dies while seeking knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise him as a shaheed. He will die in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he's just going out to seek knowledge. And that's why it's always encouraged to always support the system of seeking knowledge. When jihad had been ordained, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made in jihad, which is warfare, going and fighting for the path of Allah, for the Muslims, for the believers or whatever, commands from even that let from amongst them a group stays that will continue teaching and seeking, because obviously there's a system that needs to be implemented. One department needs to go out and defend and fight and so on, but one department needs to continue teaching people to be able to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So knowledge is not going to be deprived. It's going to also have its merit. Likewise, when you look at commanders, let me give you some examples. When you look at when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was burying the shuhada of Uhud, the shuhada of Uhud is those persons who died in the Battle of Uhud, right? When the archers went up and then they came down, and then many Sahaba lost their lives, they became shaheed. So, mashallah, Jannah is for them. But when the Prophet ﷺ was burying those 70 shuhada, those 70 Sahaba, he placed in their merits the one who was most knowledgeable. أعلمهم. The one who is more knowledgeable, then that person will be placed first as a honor, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and so on. Right? So when you have to do multiple graves and so on, you multiple people because of the amount of people that passed away, then you still give merit at that point. Likewise, on the day of judgment, people will be given thing. Likewise, when a person of Quran would be there, he would be asked recite Quran, and you will be risen above the levels of your knowledge of the Quran. Likewise, you'll be crowned on the day of judgment for studying the Quran. So what I'm saying is, and especially for parents, right? Ensure your children have some type of pathway to knowledge. Without that, you're depriving your children of something that is of great honor and great status in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, this world is temporary. The akhirat is forever. So always understand your priorities and inshallah ensure that even if it not be all children should have all the basics and more of deen knowledge, but you should even dedicate a child that, you know what, I dedicate you to go and study deen, to become a forerunner of Islam and Deen and teaching and studying and so on. And if you can get all of them, alhamdulillah, may Allah give us that tawfiq. Ameen. Okay, continuing. We were actually on this. Let me pull it up back. Okay, so we were on the Ramadan. We were talking about the different things that break your fast and disliked, and we stop at this one: acts that are makruh or disliked but do not invalidate the fast. So somebody did ask about mouthwash last time. So mouthwash would not break your fast, but is not recommended because there's a high content of taste, a high content of even fragrance that, a kind of minty thing is used for fragranting and for also refreshing. But so it's not appropriate to use it, but it would not break your fast, right? Toothpaste as well, similarly. So there are little options that I wouldn't say I would recommend, but brushing your teeth and staying clean is also a sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The natural way the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would clean his mouth would be with a miswak, a siwak. So it's always good to use that. There's a lot of benefit of that sunnah, and it's something that you should maintain as well, inshallah. However, while a person is fasting, because of the kind of foods that we eat, and it's not as wholesome and healthy as at the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and so on. There's a lot of smell that may come out of your mouth when you go to sleep, for example. You take a rest and you come out. That should be maintained in a way that does not harm someone else, right? And that's a real issue, because sometimes people say, well, I can't use toothpaste, so I come and just so, and you're using miswak, but your mouth smelling really bad, and that's an issue. So I would promote that people use things that are not so highly scented or not so tasty, tasting. Take the mild, or sometimes you can just use things like baking soda, for example, right? And use things that will remove the scent, clean your mouth, and still be able to be presentable in certain way. Especially obviously if you have to interact with people and so on, you have close interactions and so on. That's something that can be a issue. So that would be thing. Even some of the toothpaste, sometimes they're actually not very high scented and high tasting. So it's not going to nullify your fast, and sometimes it might even be better to use. Right? So I'll leave that there with you all as well. So it doesn't really it doesn't nullify a fast. It is disliked, but depends on, obviously, because now in our days too, there's a lot of products on the market. So if you can be mindful of it and try to ensure that it is the right one, or check, ask, is this better option or less better, or not as good?
Using the toothbrush like this.
Yeah, you can use a regular toothbrush as well, just the toothbrush, right? Yeah. Similarly, frosting is on the same thing. There's high tasting one and there's less tasting one, so you could use that.
That's what on the
Idea is here.
C'est cool on the soda electro. Use a what?
Yeah. So the thing about it is, it's like things like tasting. Now, I'll give you an example, right? Tasting, it actually passes through sometimes the on your tongue, the, what do you call that? The taste buds, right? And the taste buds itself sometimes can taste without swallowing, right? So in certain situations, according to the fiqh, right, it is allowed to taste something but not swallow it. What is that one situation that is mentioned is if a woman or someone who is responsible for cooking food, right, and has a difficult situation where she has like an abusive husband, or she has an abusive person, and or it might be just that her job requires her tasting it, then it's allowed, or something that is of necessity, and that's something the importance to understand. When something is of darura, it changes the law that allows the darura, what's necessary, what is necessity. So in those regard, she's allowed to taste the food, but not swallow the food, right? Because it goes in taste buds, but it spits it out. So similarly, it's like that. There is allowance to some of these things. And similarly with anything like mouthwash and these kind of things, again, it's just that you shouldn't be doing it without any need. And that's the idea behind it, and that's the reasoning behind it. Okay, so using toothpaste, mouthwash, and all that is that. Gargling, provided that water doesn't enter the throat, and B, in the case of compulsory bath, rinsing would suffice. So when you're bathing and taking a bath, don't let it go close to the end of your throat and you're gargling, because now you've opened up yourself to a possibility of a little bit of water going down, and that will break your fast. So don't do that, because it's makruh and it's disliked. So just rinse your mouth and don't let it go to the back of your throat too much. It will be sufficient. Chewing a piece of cloth, thread, plastic that is tasteless, void of flavor, and inedible as long as the item is not swallowed. So you could choose, say for example, there's gum without any flavor to it. There was a type of gum at the time of Prophet ﷺ without any flavor, without any taste. It was just like a chewy substance that they would chew, right? Is that allowed? It's not recommended, but it won't break your fast. So like that as well. Wearing lip balm, lipstick, provided that is not swallowed as well. Similarly, it wouldn't break your fast, but it's just like to go about doing all these things. And B, the above mentioned are categorized as dislike, as these actions can lead to nullification of one's fast in any substance slips down the throat, even if it occurs accidentally or unintentionally. So, an example of that is you shouldn't do anything that will compromise your fast or weaken it in any way. So, if you're going on running and exercising and that's causing you no harm to your fasting and your ability to fast, then don't do that. It becomes makruh as well. If you're going on your giving blood and you're going to be sick and you're going to be tired and you can't function properly as a person, then don't do that. That's makruh as well. So it goes like that. Anything that basically becomes a hindrance to your fasting, that is going to be a problem. Stay away from it. Okay. Now, moving on to qada and fast. Now, if your fast actually gets broken, you have to make it up. You have to make it up because that's a command that remains there. Even if it's 10 years ago and you miss fast, you have to make it up. Make it up in its time, in its due time, whilst you're alive, whilst you're healthy. There's other days to fast, fast in those days. Right? So, qada. If a person goes that and does certain actions, they will nullify their fast and necessitate that they redo their fast. What are some of those things? Smoking, vaping, e-cigarette, right? All of these will have. For habitual smokers, kafara will also be necessary. So if a person goes and he smokes, so he vapes and all that, it will break your fast. And on top of breaking your fast, you'll have to qada the fast. But if they do that too, because they're normally fasting, that will also mean kafara. I'll explain what kafara is afterwards. Kafara is a higher level of um, expiating that that followed the act that you missed. Qaza is like, okay, you miss it, you make it up on another time because you had a reason or something caused you to do it. You didn't intend to. You weren't doing it for a bad reason. But if you're doing it now out of spite, out of malice, out of, I mean, how are you going to be malice against Allah, right? But, you're just trying to, you don't want to fast. You're being arrogant. Then now is a kafara. Its expiation of that would be 60 days. I'll explain just now. So right now we're doing qada, the first level. You make a mistake, you do something wrong, you break your fast, you have to make it up. So smoking, vaping. Second thing is water slipping down the throat now while gargling. You didn't intend to do that, you did by mistake and it went down. You have to make it up now. Usage of enema, insertions of liquid gels, anything through the anal passage or through the vaginal passage, that will also, not vaginal, sorry, the anal passage, that will break your fast. Deliberately vomiting a mouthful or more will break your fast. Deliberately swallowing one's vomit, even if it's a little, regardless of it came out unintentionally or not, it will still break your fast. Applying medicine to one's mouth, nose, and then the substance enters into the throat. So you're saying that, okay, it's right here, you have a boil or something, you're going to put anything, and now all of the things that you put in go on down your throat. So obviously it's now going to the stomach area, so that'll break your fast. And you'll have to do qada of it. Usage of mist, steam, Ventolin, inhaler, and nebulizer also will break your fast. Right? So even if an emergency happens, you use it because you have to save your life. You don't want to die. Right? But after that, you have to make it over. Deliberately inhaling incense, smoke, or any matter that has a perceptible body, that actually has some kind of form or smoke like that. Ejaculation due to physical contact, like touching, kissing, caressing, fondling. Masturbation, this is a very sinful act, but it also breaks your fast and you have to make it up. Eating or drinking on assumption that it's still night, thereafter realizing that dawn has already entered, or assuming the sun has already set. So this is one that catch people sometimes, They think that the sun set and the sun didn't set. Or they think that the dawn is still there and the break of dawn didn't take place, and they're still eating, thinking that they still have about 5 minutes, and they miscalculated, or the time was wrong in the clock. So you'll have to do a qada of that fast. And sometimes if you're unsure because you're playing with the exact second inning, then just do over your qada because you might be unsure and it might be something that you need to do. Also, a woman commencing with her menstrual cycle will obviously break the fast and she has to do qada of that fast because it started with her and it'll be broken and then she have to make it up afterwards as well. Now, kafara. Kafara is the second level, which is the harsh level. That is if you disregard Allah's law and you're playing around with Allah's law now, then his punishment starts in this world. So you can make up for it, inshallah, with repentance, with being humble in front of Allah, but it also requires you to do 60 days consecutive fasting. 60 days consecutive fasting. Plenty work. Kafara is a penalty of fasting 60 consecutive days. Eating, drinking whilst one is aware that he's fasting. You just don't care. And you're going to eat and drink. Second thing, a musafir deliberately eating or drinking with or without a valid reason will not oblige kafara. So I'm just making that. If a person is musafir, then his status is lessened. So if he does it, he just has to cover off it, but he wouldn't have to do the kafar because he came into the category of a person who's excused if he chooses the excuse. So I mentioned that last week, right? Second thing is, the third thing or fourth thing is the emission of seminal fluids after or due to sexual intimacy other than intercourse does not necessitate kafara, but if a person does it, as intercourse, just mere penetration, even if emissions of fluid occurred or did not occur, kafara will be wajib upon both husband and wife. Right? So any type of sexual activity that is intentional will ensure that you have to do kafara, which is 60 days consecutively. A person having intercourse, assuming that it is still night, suddenly becomes aware of the break of dawn has entered. He must withdraw immediately. However, qada only will be necessary, not the kafara, which is the 60 days. And the last thing is smoking for one that is habitual, routine smoker, right? He has one having a nicotine dependency. Smoking is not permissible, but he also will have to do kafara. Okay, I think this is.
Someone smoking and you is given that, fasting?
So if it's unintentional, it won't break, but once you should avoid it.
Right.
And if it is intentional, then it'll break. Smoking related to fidya. Fidya is the monetary compensation. So I mentioned this. It's this year, anyone know? Check the calendar they put out. It's per month, huh? $18 for the fidya. So there's a whole slide here. It says 15, it's $18 fidya. It's the same as Sadaqatul Fitr, the same rate kind of thing. For that, each person is for each fast missed and is given but to a poor person. If a person is suffering from a chronic disease which prevents him from fasting, then he will give fidya for that day of not fasting. So chronic, remember I said that a person can't recover from it, so he will pay this instead. If a person who gives fidya because of this disease that prevented him from fasting, he recovers and is able to fast now, such a person must do qada for all of the fast that he missed. Right? And give fidya, all the fidya wouldn't be sufficient. An elderly person who has lost his strength and is getting weaker every day will have to give fidya for each day that he fasts, days that he missed his fast. There's a mistake here. If a person has a sickness that prevents him from fasting and he hopes to recover, then he may delay his fast and make qada after recovery. So this is because, if he's sick, COVID, whatever, is something that he's going through for a period, but inshallah, he's hopeful. he will wait. He wouldn't fast. He will do qada when he gets better. At that time, he still doesn't have to pay the fidya. A person who was unable to complete his previous qada before Ramadan commences, qada for previous fast will still be wajib upon him. So if a person, have wajib fast to make up, qada fast, he have to make it up, but Ramadan upon us, and he have 60 days, well, 30 days to make up, and you have 15 days remaining. Fast the 15 days now, and after Ramadan, continue fasting what you missed. So anything that is missed have to be made up, right? So some women, and it's always good to make it up during the year. Don't move it to next year. The same year. You can't, no, you can fast on the sunnah days, but you can't make the intention as a sunnah fast. Right? Because sunnah is of a lower degree than fard. So fard have to be first. If the intention is a fard fast, then that intention supersedes any other intention. So nothing else will be achieved, because like it takes up the whole block right away. When you do a sunnah fast, you can do actually 2-3 intentions, because it's a sunnah fast. Ayam is inside there. The Shaban fast inside there. A few things, one shot you can get in a fasting, because the intention can be multiple. But when it's a fard fast, it's only that whole block taken already. It can't be given to another entity. Or you can't say doing 3 fasts one time. Three fard fasts. Well, let me hit 10 fard one time in one fast. You can only hold one space. All right, so that's the end of this session with regard to some of the masail or rulings and laws of fasting. So let's see, is there any other questions that wasn't answered?
If someone has a couple from accident, could they use alcohol for swallowing it?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, cleaning cuts and so on is fine. Cuts won't break the fast.
Or they make their plate like, yeah, they are for the fast, like, they have to, for the salad.
If a person gets up for Fajr Salah and they wasn't able to eat, then he still makes his intention to fast. Right? If he gets up, he has to make intention before midday. If he sleeps throughout until sunset, will his fasting be done? That's a question for you. He wakes up, no, he goes to sleep for Isha, after Isha, and goes to sleep, and wakes up the next day, 9 o'clock or something in the night. 12 hours non-stop he sleep.
It's a fast.
Asking,
Yeah.
he's sleeping,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah, when you get up, you can fast.
But when he gets up, the whole day passed already. Alright, hold on a time, I can't hear every answer. What do you say? Alright, very good. So you have until midday to make that intention. And if you didn't get to make it until midday, then that fast is not considered anymore. Right. And the way to do that, and all the time, that's why in the intentions, if you notice the words that it say, I intend to fast tomorrow. So if you make the intention before you go to sleep, then it will suffice, because you did make the intention. I remember fasting is separate and salah is separate. Just like you for your salah, but just in case you didn't get up, your fasting still would be intact if you made the intention. That's why intention is necessary in fasting as well.
Yeah, and for the salad too. If you ain't have time for the salad, before you make the film for the salad.
Well, yeah, you have to pray it still, yeah. And
Before
yes, you
I-
should pray it before midday as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope you got that little fun fact that happens, and it is something. Yeah, one question here. You said vomiting multiple intention breaks your fast. Unintentional. Yes, that means unintentional doesn't break your fast. Sorry, what?
Someone's supposed to tie the fast, but you didn't fight it, right? And 5 minutes passed, so just simply, if you get some, like feedback on it.
If the time changes, then they can't anymore. But you know what? If you miss the time, say Subah Sadiq, to start your time is say 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And you wake up and 4 or 5 you still eating, and then you realize that you missed your fast, the time to stop. You have to make qadha of that, make it up, and at the same time you can't eat during the day because you made a mistake, right? But the law of Allah is that you should be fasting. So you still have to maintain not eating, but you still have to make it up. Because it's a very disrespectful thing that the law is there of fasting and you're eating without any care and concern. For women who are in their menses, though, fasting is not for them, so they can eat. They are not allowed to fast at all.
It's nice when you wait for last minute to try and fast. See in the end, at least like a 3 minutes or 5 minutes before. Rather than waiting till the exact cutoff time.
So that's why you try to finish eating earlier. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum. Continue next week. Next week will be our last session on the Tuesdays, inshallah. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.